want to do it? You can do it.
I don't want to take it away from him.
Hi, Angela. You can do it, Eric.
Okay.
You lobby, you get it. So, John, Eric's going to do it. As long as if I remember.
Did you see that expression?
I did. You made it. Are you guys ready?
I can trade it. Yeah, I don't need it.
All right, welcome to our board meeting for November 8th here at Bauer. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Here. Mr. Jerpy, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Well, we're appreciative for Bauer for hosting us. Dr. Schuler, would you introduce Ms. Bridget Moore, the principal of Bauer?
I'd be happy to. So we're just going to make our way up to the podium. We are so thankful, appreciative of the opportunity to be at Bauer. I think Mrs. Lackno said on the way in, actually my very first board meeting in the district 10 years ago was at Bauer, first one. So happy to be back here. Mrs. Moore doing an incredible job here at Bauer with Mrs. De La Rosa, who's here as well. So I'm going to hand the meeting right over to her. She's got a great treat for us tonight.
Well, great. We're going to get our friends who are presenting with me just a second to line up here, okay? Face this way. We're going to face these guys. You'll come where I'm coming, and you're going to face these are our guests. Okay. Thank you for coming to Bauer tonight. We are so excited to welcome you, and that's not just me. That's this incredible staff that I have here with me tonight because they are so excited also to have you here. I have several friends that are going to tell you a little bit about the things that make Bauer special. But I, like you, have had the privilege of living and working in District 200 my entire life. So that's given me a lot of opportunities to work in a lot of really great places with really great people. I know the caliber of students and staff that we get to work with every day, but my heart is at Bauer. And there's several reasons for that. We have an enormous building with a really special population at Bauer. We have 450 students, 103 of which speak a language other than English at their homes. We house the Essentials program at Bauer, which is our 7 self-contained special education classes for students in K through 5th grade. We have 112 staff members, making us the largest elementary school and middle school, size-wise, in District 200. But the thing that makes us the most special is the community of people who come into Bauer every single day. The heart of the people that I get to work alongside and the students that I get to work with are the part of the job that make me feel that we work at the most special place. So my friends who are with me here today are going to share with you some of the things that they think make Bauer the most special place.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm in 4th grade.
And I'm Evan, and I'm 1st grade.
Every single student at Bauer is a part of Paul's family. Our families meet once a month, and each family has students from every grade level. When our families meet, we learn more about each other, and we do activities together that help us become better friends and leaders.
I love about family. Hi, I am Alexandra, and I am in 2nd grade. Each month, our entire school participates in an all-school meeting. The teachers take turns planning each whole school meeting, and there is usually a theme. These This past month, Miss Wilkes and Mr. Cocat had a game show to review our expectations. Every all school meeting, students get to celebrate their birthday by standing in front of the audience and answering a birthday question, and Miss Moore shows a video from 1 second of every day we are in school.
Hi, I'm George, and I'm in 3rd grade, and this is my reading buddy Charlotte, and she is in kindergarten. Our 2 classes are buddies this year, so once a month our classes get together and Charlotte and I get to read books together. Or sometimes we do a craft or activity together. Each year we get a new buddy and it is really fun because then we make new friends at different grades.
I'm Madison and I'm in 5th grade, and this is my friend Sam. One of the things that makes Bauer really special is the 7 essentials classrooms that are at Bauer. We love having such an inclusive school where we always see that the things that make us different are the things that make us the best. Our peer buddies are 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and we give up a portion of our lunch or recess and spend the time helping with our essential students during adapted PE or during other activities. These students end up being our friends, and we look forward to any of the times we get to spend together.
Hi, I am Lucas and I am in 5th grade. One of the clubs that we have at Bauer is Multicultural Club. The Multicultural Club meets during lunch once a month. Each time we meet, we celebrate and learn about another culture. Most of the time, we learn about a culture which represents one of our Bauer families. In this picture, my mom represented our Multicultural Club about Peru. We brought food from Peru and clothing and items which have meaning to our family. One time we learned about Greece, and our Bauer teachers, Miss Kay and Miss Pemezis, who are Greek, shared about their culture. It's a really cool time to learn more about the people who make up Bauer.
Hi, I'm Paula in 5th grade. I'm going to tell you about ML Night. Every year, our 4 ML teachers plan a fun night for multilingual families. At this event, all of our Bauer families who speak another language besides English come together. My family speaks Burmese at home. Last year, we all had pizza, and then the parents rotated through stations where they learned ways to be involved at Bauer. And the students played games in the gym and did crafts. This year, our ML night is at the end of the month, and the theme is A Day of the Life of a Bauer Student. Our parents will be able to experience all of the things we experience in a day at Bauer. We have almost 100 people attend our ML nights.
I'm Logan and I'm in 3rd grade.
And I'm Logan's sister, Caroline. Here, and I'm in 2nd grade. Every year, we always come to family reading night.
This year for family reading night was in October, and it was a camping theme. We rotated through 6 different activities.
One of the best rotations this year was an interactive read aloud, where the teachers acted out all of the characters in a story.
One of my favorite parts of the night was Kahoot. We all did together in the music room. I also enjoyed that my friends from school were in my group that night too.
And I also loved
reading by flashlight in all the tents in the gym. It is a really fun night.
My name is Diego, and I'm in 3rd grade. One of the best clubs at Bowers Running Club. Mr. B runs running club during recess. We run giant laps and collect popsicle sticks for each lap. Then we turn in our popsicle sticks in for these charms to wear on our running club necklace for every 12 laps or popsicle sticks. You get a charm. I have been doing running club every year at Bauer, and these are all of my charms I have earned from each year. I have a total of 10. It is so much fun.
I am Linnea, and I am in 5th grade. Production Club is one of the many exciting things to do at Bauer. It gives 5th graders a chance to create a news story, work on their editing skills, and collaborate with new, interesting friends. It involves jokes, fun facts, a science experiment, news anchors, and a mystery teacher with 3 clues before the reveal at the end. Each kid plays a unique part in Production Club. Mr. Lecron and Mrs. Lampkin teach all the skills we need to create our final broadcast each month.
Hiya!
I knew it. I'm so scared. Does mean like this? What? Where? Hey. Miss Matt, make coffee and deliver coffee. This teachers.
I'm Amelia, and I'm in 5th grade. Mr. Archer, our art teacher, runs an art club after school during the school year. It is so much fun, and he had 80 4th grade students sign up last year. It's fun because we get to visit our friends and do projects that are different from the ones we do during the school day. I love art, and I always look forward to art club.
Real loud.
I'm Nyla, and then I'm Nyla, and then I'm 1st grade.
Okay. Niola, I've got a picture up there of your cart. Can you tell them what you collect?
Pencils
Niola, who do you collect the pencils from?
for the teachers.
And then what do you do for the teachers?
They go back.
What do you do with the pencils?
Sharpen them.
And then what do you do after you've sharpened them?
They come back to our teachers.
The teachers are so thankful.
Thankful.
Great job.
Hi, I'm Lincoln, and I'm in 5th grade. I've been looking forward to the staff versus student basketball game for a long time. Every year, our 5th graders take on the teachers, and we raise money for the Ronald McDonald House. There are students who compete in the games, students who are cheerleaders during the game, students who run the scoreboard, and students who announce the game. And most importantly, my dad is the ref every year to make sure we are following the rules. We packed the gym that night, and I can't wait to play this year.
We are really proud of our school. We love the teachers who make learning fun every day, and we love the students who come to school with us each day. We know that we are lucky to be a part of a community that celebrates all the things that make us unique. And we know that this is a part that makes us really special as a whole.
We also want to thank the Board of Education for all you do to make sure that we have everything we need at Bauer to keep us safe and able to learn. And we know that you are making sure that happens at each of our schools and not just at Bauer. Thank you for your support and the work you do.
So Mrs. Moore and I want to give a really big thank you to all of our incredibly brave students who got up here to talk to all of you. And we hope that you now have a glimpse of all the reasons that Bauer is such a special place. So thank you again for your time.
Okay.
It's not going to get better than that. Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Right, just go now? Okay. All right. While the kids get settled and get to where they need to be, I just gotta say, what a great. I want to shut the meeting down and say we're done because it's not going to get better than that, right? It was so good, so good. Thank you so much. Thank you, and all the teachers that showed up tonight, fantastic. Thank you, the parents. Okay, we're gonna keep going, and when we're ready, we have Ms. Moore back. Board members, are there any modifications to the agenda tonight?
Yes, I'd like to request that we move approval of bills payable and payroll off the consent agenda and to action items.
So that's consent item 4, which will be action item 4. Any other modifications, board? All right. So we are moving consent item 4 to action item 4 for this evening. I guess we're going to move. Do you want to? Are you done? Want to come back or? She's done. Oh, you're done. Okay. Sorry. No, you good? All right, we're good. I just want to make sure we give you the time you need. It's all good. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I'm really excited to announce a new program we're going to have in place, and it's called the High School Student Ambassadors. And I want to just read the first line from the policy that announces this and makes this official, because I think it's so perfectly written. It says the Board of Education wishes to learn about student opinions, issues, and concerns, and wishes to provide students with educational experiences with the operation of a school district. And so what you're going to start seeing in the future is members of our high school that were selected. I'll let Dr. Schuler go into the details of that. And they're going to join us at the board table for every board meeting. And this will give us a direct connection to students, and they will go back and work with their student teams in each of the high schools. And that's how we're going to have this direct connect to the student body in our high schools. I think it's just fantastic. I'm not doing it the the service it needs. I'll let Dr. Schuler go into some details and introduce our student ambassadors.
And so, one, just a huge thank you to a team of adults that I think kind of helped to create this opportunity. We are so excited to welcome 5 student ambassadors this evening. We had over 30 students apply to be a part of this opportunity, and Mrs. Blattner and Mr. Paulson and Mr. Brennan, Mr. Vankis from our high schools had the really difficult task of wading through those applications, interviewing all of the students, and ultimately kind of helping us to get to the point tonight. But I agree with you 100%, Mr. Hanlon, that making sure that we incorporate into board discussion, board decisions, the voice of our students is incredibly important. I think we've found over and over again, and certainly I think was solidified through the interview process, that we have some absolutely incredible high school students that have a lot that they can help us to understand. They are incredibly insightful, incredibly talented, and I think this is going to be a huge asset to the board. Actually, in a conversational earlier today with Kaylee and Tomas, one of the other things that I know that they're going to do as well is really infuse some positivity in this overall experience. they bring a perspective, I think, that really represents the experience that our students have in our school, and I think it's gonna continue to lift up some of our discussions as well, which I think incredibly important. So tonight I get the pleasure of introducing our 5 student ambassadors. I'm going to ask each of them, as I introduce you, if you could use the microphone closest to you, and if you wouldn't mind, just a very quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are, some of your experiences at the high school, so that the community gets an opportunity to meet you. So I'm going to start first with Kaylee McGady from Wheaton, Warrenville South.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kaylee McGady. I'm a Wheaton South senior. I've been in the district my whole life. So I started at Madison, and then I went to Weesbrook, then I went to Hubble, now I'm at South. I am so excited to get to connect with the board. I am told I often talk a lot, sometimes a little too much, but now I have an excuse to talk in class because I get to connect with other students. I am so honored to be here tonight, and really thank you so much, the Board of Education, for considering student opinion and bringing us in. It's a big honor as a student to be here.
Thank you, Kaylee, and welcome. Tomas Moran. Tomas.
Hello, I am Tomas Moran, and I am a senior at Wheaton Warrenville South. I have been at the district since February of 2022 after moving from Lima, Peru. Since moving here, I've involved myself in a wide array of activities, and I believe that I really have been able to get a full student experience here, especially at Wheaton Warrenville South. Overall, I think that this is a very important part of the democratic process, a very important part of local government. So I really appreciate that the school board has put an effort to get the student opinion and student voice into these school board meetings, and I look forward to our work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomas. From Wheaton North, Natat Nang.
Hi, my name is Tanai, and I'm a senior at Wheaton North. And it's such an honor to be able to be here to represent my school and to be alongside Tomas and my other fellow companions on this journey. And it's just a huge honor. And I want people to know that, like, I smile a lot, and I get told that often, and that my smile is a gift. So I want to spread my smile to other students, and I want other people to come to talk to me too. So it's an honor.
Thank you. Jacob Halter.
Hi, my name is Jacob Halter. I'm a senior at Wheaton North High School. I started out in the district at Washington Elementary School. I went to Franklin Middle School, and now I'm at Wheaton North. So I'm about as north side as you could probably get as a student at District 200. But I'm happy to be here at Bauer. A lot of my experience, I feel, comes from youth leadership. I've always been interested in things like Model UN and youth in government, some things that I do at school, obviously outside of school. I've helped found, and I'm currently chairing a board of student-aged teens who work at the BRRIL YMCA, who have started to put together a $2 million program about youth health initiatives. Outside of that, I have networked, I feel like, a lot across the district. I've met a lot of great people throughout my 12 years of being in the district, and I've had a lot of fun doing that. I feel like my perspective shares a lot with a lot of different students from different backgrounds and people who do different programs, and I feel like I've gotten a little taste of everything that the district has to offer. So I feel like because of that, I feel like my perspective will really enhance the quality of the school perspective moving forward.
Thank you. And from Wheaton North, Ethan Spade.
Hello, I'm Ethan Spade. I've been to board meetings in the past and spoken at them, so this is not anything new. However, I haven't stayed for a full one yet, so this will be a little interesting. I hear they can be dragged on a little bit. But I'm involved in lots of extracurriculars. I'm one of the drum majors of marching band. I'm a co-president of Wheaton North Students Against Gun Violence Club, and I'm also involved in Winter Guard and Music Appreciation Club. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm really honored, so thank you.
Great. Thank you. So we really look forward, I think, for tonight, just so the board knows, I told our 5 student ambassadors tonight was their opportunity to kind of hang back and learn. So each of them has somebody from our senior leadership team that's going to kind of help them as we go through the meeting tonight. But really look forward. And again, just one more thing that I mentioned today is Kayla Tomas and I were talking this. It's going to be a work in progress this year, and I'm really excited to have our 5 student ambassadors kind of help us figure out exactly what this role is going to look like. I know we have an aspiration into what we want it to look like, but they're going to really help to create a model that I think is going to endure for a long time in the district. So welcome to all of you. We look forward to working with you this year.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Schuler. Just two quick thoughts. We see bookends tonight, right? We saw our Bauer students up here, and we see our 5 seniors here. It's just a really cool, inspiring journey. It's amazing what this district is about and stands for, and the students that are in it. It's such a community effort, right? Teachers, staff, administration, parents. It's just awesome. So that's the first thought. The second thing, and I don't know if we mentioned it, everybody who applied is going to serve actually in their high school. So all the north students that applied and the south students that applied will be on a committee in their high schools that these ambassadors will work with and connect with to help penetrate and radiate kind of through the high school community. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood. We really appreciate those that applied as well, and they are going to have a role in this journey with us. So that's really a fantastic thing. All right, next section is public comment. We have one public comment tonight. So I'm going to read my preamble, and then we'll hear from our speaker. Thank you for taking time to share your feedback and thoughtful focus on our students, school district, and community. It is the board's practice not to directly discuss communication from the community until the context is understood and information explored. It's not our intention to signal a lack of interest, and we appreciate your understanding. Depending on the number of people tonight that are signed up, Public Comment Board Policy 2.230 enables the time per speaker to be reduced from 3 to 2 minutes, allowing more people to share their perspectives. We will not have to reduce that time tonight. To maintain confidentiality, the board asks that matters concerning personnel or students be communicated to the board privately. When we meet, it's important that we treat each other with kindness and respect. We set an example for our schools and desire to honor that by being courteous in our public comments. Let's work together to lead with positive intent so that our democratic process reflects the best of our community. To help us follow up if needed, please include your name and if you're a resident of the district. And to ensure everyone has a chance to speak, Mr. Long tonight will raise his hand when 15 seconds remain as a reminder to wrap up your thoughts. And then at the end of our agreed time, I'll respectfully ask you to allow the next speaker to begin. Thank you for investing your time to attend the board meeting tonight and share your thoughts and encouragement for our district. We'll hear from our single speaker tonight. That's Bill Archer, who's a Bauer art teacher. Mr. Archer. There we go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Archer, and I'm the art teacher here at Bauer. I want to welcome you all this evening. I'm a proud WWEA member, and I'm lucky enough to have been able to call Bauer my home for the last 2 years. And I'm here tonight to speak to something that I feel everyone should know and hear and feel about Bauer Elementary. And I want to share what makes us so special. I hope you'll join me for a moment as I attempt to express something that's kind of difficult to put into words, but something that's vital to my identity as a teacher and something that's become the foundation of my day-to-day experience here at Bauer. I want to share with you something profoundly beautiful, the beauty of which is enhanced by acknowledging first a harsh truth that the world can be a scary place. We as adults working in education know this, we process it, we shoulder it, and we exhaust ourselves trying to compartmentalize it. But these things don't deter the 112 staff members who show up every day with full hearts and focused minds. Bauer staff are an exceptional sort. We supply joyful learning and inclusive optimism, even in the midst of days where light may seem dim and the world a bit scary. 112 staff members show up every day to meet each child where they are. I'll say that again. Bauer Elementary, educationally, socially, emotionally, with expertise and the fullest measure of dedication, meets each child where they are. The very foundation of the culture that Bridget instills at Bauer, and that which we maintain, is that each student find a secure sense of belonging. And this is the light that burns during days that might seem dark. Yes, the world can be a scary place. The children are surrounded by it, and without adult minds and wisdom and experience, they absorb it, and it burdens them. But tonight I want to share with you something that is so much greater than shadows and burdens and fears. Every day, just after sunrise, 450 students show up. They carry with them rawness that the scary world inflicts on them, and they bring it to the doorsteps and hallways and classrooms of Bauer. 450 bring with them furious energy, and that's what drives their elementary student minds. They take with them their questions and stories, and they so desperately want to be noticed. They want to know they matter and to find unquestionable security in their belonging here. When I was a child, my world was a scary place, and one deep memory I have was watching Mr. Rogers on TV. He had a gentle persistence and high expectations for the people of the world, to show compassion and demonstrate kindness, and to keep in the heart the memory of all the people who loved you into being. Something often quoted after one terrifying thing or another in the world is as follows. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. That's a beautiful reminder. As education professionals, we're challenged to take this a step further and to be the helpers. It's the very reason that I'm proud to call Bauer my home. And such is the culture that Bridget has fostered at Bauer, holding us to the most human expectation that, if anything else, we surround 450 students with compassion and a sense of security. That being said, I want to speak with an emotional and humble pride that I see something remarkable, unexpected, and tenderly wholesome happening. Bauer students are the helpers. They become the helpers. Bauer students have learned to leave the nest and without prompting or payment have become the very thing that they seek from us. And so, Bauer Elementary gives the world 450 helpers. As an art teacher, I have the opportunity to work with each and every student. I meet them where they're at. I get to see them at their most vulnerable and most authentic when they're creating. My favorite part of being at Bauer is collecting these stories of hope. As you've seen tonight from our students, Bauer is a gem with many facets. The brilliance is magnified in many ways. You only need to bear witness to the joy shared between reading buddies on Thursday afternoons or watching 4th and 5th grade peer buddies demonstrate leadership during adaptive PE or family reading night, fine arts night, staff-student basketball games, monthly all-school meetings, multicultural club, orchestra, band, PACE, running club, so many more things than I have time to list. These are the things that 450 Bauer students take with them when they move up and off into a big, sometimes scary world. But they'll do so with tender light, and they'll remember above all that we were there every day, maintaining the beacon fire of a culture of joyful belonging. The children show up. That's what makes Bauer so special.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. All right, board, we're going to move the consent agenda. The items are as follows. Acceptance of, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Schuler, I skipped your report. You got to give me the elbow, man. You got to give me the elbow. Sorry, Dr. Schuler, do you have anything to report?
I have just a couple of things, and I can't, it's going to be tough to follow the amazing presentations tonight, but just want to mention a couple things to the board and community. Number one, as I was driving down here tonight from the office and passing Wheaton, Warrenville South, I was reminded with all the flags that line the road that tomorrow our buildings are going to be doing a variety of activities to honor Veterans Day. Board members, I think Mrs. Lacano shared with you a spreadsheet of the different activities that are taking place. I encourage you, if you have time to join one of our buildings for that, please do. Number two, just a quick thank you as we've kind of wrapped up recently. The end of the fall season means we celebrate a lot of hard work in our athletics and our activities and opportunities tomorrow night. Actually going to see a play at Wheaton Warrenville South. So just a huge congratulations and thank you to all of our students that have engaged in activities. Dr. Sloggy, I think, shares regularly as a key metric in our district the percentage of our students that are involved in an activity. It's really important to connectedness to school, and so I just want to take a minute to recognize the accomplishments through the fall season. Third thing that I wanted to mention, I just came across my desk, and so a quick recognition and thank you. We have a community member actually at Johnson Elementary School. I hope I don't mispronounce the name, Christina Campione. Christina actually has led an effort at Johnson to build a garden. It's a community garden. If you ever go by Johnson, you will see it fenced out in front of the building. She did this on her own because she had an inspiration to see how she could go about both growing and distributing fresh vegetables in the community. I saw an email from her just in summary indicating they estimate they've handed out hundreds of pounds of fresh produce just to the local community. That's the only place that they distribute it. One of their claims to fame is that the seeds, the tomato plants, actually went up into space before they came back down and got planted in the Johnson garden. I think space did something to those tomato plants, because if you saw the yield, I've never had a tomato plant that has produced anywhere near the amount of vegetables. But again, just incredible experience. She's actually now turned that into an LLC and is expanding that, has partnered with the Arboretum and some other entities to really see how she can expand that to other school sites across the community and certainly across our area. So just neat celebration. I encourage you, if you ever have an opportunity, stop by Johnson, take a look at that garden. We have a parent education session coming up on Monday. Dr. Sloggy, you mind giving us just 30 seconds on that opportunity?
Yeah, happy to do so. So Rich Wostocki will be coming to Wheaton North High School, 6:30 p.m. Monday evening. Rich is one of the nation's leading experts in cyber safety, cyberbullying, all things cyber protection for kids, parents, families. So we think it's going to be a tremendous event. He travels all around the country. He's very highly sought after. And so we encourage our parents to come out for that. Obviously, board members welcome as well. So we're really, really excited. We see it being incredibly valuable for families, and we're looking forward to it.
Great.
Dr. Salagi, for those in the community who cannot attend when it's offered, will it be recorded and available for later viewing?
No, it will not. It is just an in-person experience.
And that, I mean, we would love to be able to share that. Obviously, that's not something he can put out there for free in a recording. Otherwise, I think he would potentially lose a little bit of his business model. So, wanted to mention on Tuesday, December the 5th, so right after we return from the Thanksgiving week, there is a Pack the Gym night at Hubble. Our Special Olympics team, the Flying Tigers, is going to be competing that night. I think they're playing against Downers Grove, if I'm not mistaken. But please consider coming out to participate in that event. There's a 50-50 raffle and some other opportunities to support some great opportunities in our community. So please consider joining us for that. I have just two more things really quickly. One, just a reminder, at our last committee of the whole meeting, Mrs. Murphy did a report on the school and district report cards recently released from the Illinois State Board of Education. Those are live. We had some really positive student learning results that we're really proud of, and so just we put a reminder out to the community to please take a look at those report cards, and if you want to see progress, or certainly you can go to the dashboard on the district website to see same information. I'd encourage you to consider doing so. Tomorrow, I have a great opportunity, so I have to thank Erica for this. A few years back, in front of Thanksgiving every year, Erica also always helps me to find a good inspirational story of giving thanks. And so tomorrow I'm actually going to the Transition Center to spend some time with some of our students at the Transition Center and staff, and build a little bit of inspiration. So that's your tease for the Thanksgiving message, and please look for that. And then finally, I just want to add thank you. I think that was at the end of the report from Host School this evening. So next week in the state of Illinois is School Board Member Appreciation Day. So personally, I want to thank all of our board members. You do what is by far, I think, the most challenging volunteer job opportunity in the community, and you do that on behalf of not only the 12,000 students in District 200, but the 50,000 residents in District 200 that value, that count on our schools as an incredible asset to our community. So on behalf of the community, but certainly on behalf of myself and my team here in District 200, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Dr. Schuler. All right, we're going to go on to the consent agenda. I'm going to read the items. Acceptance of gift to Wheaton North High School for the boys football program. Acceptance of gift to Wheaton North High School for the boys basketball program. Approval to post curriculum content for the transitional English for community review. Approval of minutes, October 11, 2023, regular meeting, open and closed. October 13, 2023, special meeting with local elected officials, open. October 25th, 2023, committee of the whole, open. And approval to destroy recordings of the closed sessions prior to June 2022 as allowable by law. Approval of personnel report to include employment, resignation, retirement, and leave of absence of administrative, certified, classified, and non-union staff. Board, are there any items that you want removed from the consent agenda? Dr. Schuler, any additional information?
No, I'm going to let Mr. Long, I think, just wants to make mention of one of the items.
Yeah. So I'm going to abstain from the consent agenda. My wife started a new job at the Transition Center, so she's on the employment report. So so I'm abstaining, which means I'm abstaining for the other ones, which isn't a statement about any of those.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Board, any questions or comments? All right.
Move approval.
Got it. Okay. Board, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I need a motion first. Oh, that was you. Sorry. I thought you were testing your mic. Sorry. I'm really having a rough time tonight. Mr. Rutledge, seconded by Mr. Jerpy. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Abstain.
Yes.
Yes. All right, we're on the policy posting consent agenda, and we have one policy on the posting agenda. Approval to post revised policy 6.300, graduation requirements for public review and comment. Dr. Schuler.
Yes, your policy committee met to review this, among other items, at its most recent meeting. I'm going to ask Mrs. Murphy just to give a little context to the revisions that have been are being recommended this evening. They come out of our career pathways work. So, Mrs. Murphy.
Yes, this is directly tied to the board's Vision 2026 strategic plan, and so that specifically is tied to the strategy that reads expand programming to prepare students for a range of post-secondary opportunities. And on the strategic plan, we have a large work project that is about career pathways and expanding those opportunities. With that work, we had identified that we wanted to do a review of graduation requirements. So we have undergone that review, and in front of you sits some recommended adjustments to the graduation requirements. It should be noted that there is no change proposed to the total number of credits that we would be requiring students to meet. It's just some proposed changes to individual categories, which our team feels will provide students with more flexibility. Those changes are reducing English from 4.5 credits to 4 credits, eliminating the requirement for a 1.0 technology credit and a 1.0 arts credit. Those would move into the other courses category, allowing students more flexibility with electives.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Board, any questions or comments?
Yes, I do have a comment. I will be supportive of posting this. That said, I do have some reservations that I wanted to share. Really two. First, it seems likely that we'll have to rework this based on pending changes to the foreign language requirements. So I question, is it prudent to come up with what is essentially a interim policy? My second concern is that our current requirements appear to me to reflect somewhat of a liberal arts philosophy. We require students to take credits in a number of different areas, and by requiring a student to take a credit in an area like arts or speech or technology that they might not otherwise want to, they become exposed to things and may find a connection to the school or an interest that they don't even know they have. By changing the structure, I'm concerned that that may not be the case going forward. That said, I think it's very appropriate to get the public feedback on this, so thank you.
And Eric, I will just echo that. At the HR Policy Committee meeting, we discussed that. And I agree with, I have a little bit of difficulty with removing that fine art requirement because of students not having that exposure, not choosing to do that. So I really would encourage the public to give us their opinion, because we really would like to get to know what other people are thinking. We also did discuss the possible upcoming change with the foreign language requirement, and it seems to be uncertain at this time if that will actually come to fruition.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, just a clarification. I'm looking at page 2 of the policy that we're going to post. Of the other courses now, 6.5 credits, it says 1.5 credits must be used for art, music, world languages, and applied tech and speech. So that still gives students a little bit more choice, right? I mean,
Yes.
Big picture, I like the idea of giving students more autonomy in their course selection, so that they have the ability to carve their own path. I certainly understand, as a person that as an architect, I understand the value of art. But I like the idea, but we still have requirements that still give them some flexibility. So I'm excited about this, but we'll see what the community says.
All right, board, I need a motion and a second to approve the policy posting consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Jerpy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, under policy approval consent agenda, we have one policy for approval tonight, the approval of revised policy 4.152, capital renewal funding, the Sherman-Durgis methodology. Dr. Schuler?
Yeah, really no additional information. I think this was presented to the board at your last meeting. It actually came out of review of a few different committees, but largely out of the facilities committee. I think really just trying to bring a little greater clarity to that role as a capital renewal funding strategy within the district. So it really started as an accountability structure a number of years ago when it went into play, and I think the desire of the facilities committee was just to bring greater clarity around not only that as an accountability structure, but as a strategy for looking forward for how we would fund. So Brad or John, if you have anything you want to add, please feel free, but I think it's recommended for approval tonight.
Board, any other questions or comments?
There was no feedback, right?
Yep.
Or no feedback
From the community.
From the
Right,
community.
right.
Question though, wasn't this presented to the CAC?
The policy itself, we did not present the policy, no.
All right, board, I need a motion and a second to approve the policy approval consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. Rutledge. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, board, we have 4 action items tonight. The first action item is approval of resolution and final contract for guaranteed energy savings with Performance Services, Inc. for summer work. Dr. Schuler.
Yeah, so timely that we just talked about Sherman-Durgis. So a good chunk of Sherman-Durgis and that allocation for next summer actually applies to mechanical work at a number of buildings. So I'll hand it to Dr. O'Keefe and let him give you an introduction.
Yep, thank you for the introduction, Dr. Schuler. As mentioned, our focus each year with the gratitude and support of the Board of Education is to continue to look at updating our facilities. Outside of our middle school conversations that have begun many months ago, we're really looking at how to upgrade the environments, both at our on the elementary side of things and then on the high school side of things. This upcoming summer, and the recommendation in front of you tonight, would be the 13th iteration of updating specifically HVAC boiler, other mechanical type of work within our buildings. If you recall, this past summer, one major piece of mechanical work that we did throughout all of one of our elementary buildings was Lowell. So full HVAC upgrade, chillers, boilers, everything associated with it. In this specific package, it's just the next iteration, moving on to our next elementary school, which is Wheaton. And then we have two other areas that became of high need that are specifically required to address. One is at Hubble Middle School. We have 4 boilers at Hubble Middle School. As we all know, water is a little bit challenging in terms of the area within Warrenville. So the lifespan of some of our mechanical equipment gets moved up beyond what we think it necessarily would normally be. So the replacement of these 3 boilers at Hubble, we had considered for this past summer. It did not fit into the budget. Would allow us to get to a point where ideally then we don't need to touch boilers again for the next 15 years. We don't typically use all 4 boilers at once. They rotate, but that constant rotation and just the water cycling through all of the boilers is a challenge on all the actual equipment itself. And then the last area is actually a focus here where we're at tonight at Bauer. In our main gym, which is right down the hallway here, we do have heating specific to that space. We don't have cooling specific to that space. And as you heard from our own children, our own students, and then our staff, it's a beautiful and important building that happens here. And to make sure that we have some consistency in terms of how the full facility is run and to provide all of our students and certainly our students with special needs the opportunity to use that gym space in the time of year where it's challenging from a humidity and temperature perspective. That's specifically what this update does. On top of that, it actually gives us control over the space, which we've not had before. Anytime we've had to adjust any space considerations at Bauer in the main gym here, we've had to do it on site. This gives us full off-site control of that space, and then it updates 3 pieces of equipment that are here that have met their lifespan.
All right, thank you, Dr. O'Keefe. Board, any questions or comments?
Just one comment. I'm supportive of the specific resolution in this contract. I do have a process concern that I believe one of the other board members touched on last meeting, which was just the lack of competitive bids on some very significant line items within this. I would just like to see if there's any way going forward when we look at similar types of work under similar agreements that we can ensure competitive bidding situations. Thank you.
I have one question. You said it was the 13th iteration?
Correct.
In what time frame? I mean, what is that?
So this is next summer would be year 13, and that began right at the beginning of it was either 2010 or 2011.
Okay,
was the
so
first
we've been
month that
doing
we
this
did.
for 13 years. Is
Correct.
What that really means.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
With the same partner following the same process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board? Ms. Rutledge?
For those that don't have competitive bidding, is that because there are no contractors interested in doing the work? Is that because there's a specific vendor for a specific brand or product that is consistent with the rest of our equipment?
Yeah, it's a few. Correct. It's a few things. And then the open book pricing, it does walk through all of the pricing for each of those individual areas. Some of those areas where you do see a single item, it's because we are, let's take for instance, all of our upright mechanical units that go inside classrooms. It's the same unit that we've been using year after year after year. It's not something that we would actually get secondary or third pricing on. There is work that's done specifically by PSI, like putting the control system and the software platform in place. Same process we've used before. We certainly would not look to have another vendor interject itself into the process. And in other areas, similar, there's a piece for Larson Equipment. All of our countertops that are going into the school, it's the same fabricator, same type of product that's been going in our schools year after year. So you wouldn't see, any type of so-called competitive bid pricing on that because it's the same type of, same piece of equipment or same type of service year after year. But in major categories like sheet metal, like specifically plumbing, and the major HVAC mechanical side of things, you do see multiple bids in those areas.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions? Mr. Paulson?
Yeah, I'll comment. Yeah, I agree in terms of the competitive bid thing. One of the challenges all school districts have, especially big districts, is trying to get consistency of equipment, and there's a lot of value in the same kind of unit ventilator, the same kind of digital controls. There's huge value in that, and I was the one that brought up the competitive bidding, but there certainly are some specific pieces of this where it's you wouldn't get even if you got competitive bidding, you're going to create yourself a bigger problem later on down the road in traditional methods of delivery. The other thing I want to make sure we don't forget is that this is not only an energy benefit to the district, that this really improves the indoor air quality and the learning environment for students and teachers. So there is another benefit that does have an impact on, the quality of student achievement. There are some research studies around that. So let's not forget that even though that doesn't fit into the delivery method and the calculation, there's a direct tangible benefit to our students. And as I voted last year on this, and as I stated in the last meeting, I feel some professional conflicts. I don't know if I actually have a technical conflict, but it's just kind of what I feel like I should do. I will abstain on this. I will say that this model has worked well for us. And we've done this, as stated, probably for over, 12, 13 years now. So this is a good model that's worked well for us. It stays true to the intent of the legislation that was passed in the state of Illinois. So I just share that with you, but I will be abstaining for kind of personal feelings.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Any other questions? All right, board, I need a motion and a second to approve the resolution and second amendment to the installation contract with Performance Services, Inc. in the amount of $5,120,184 as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Long.
Second.
Second by Ms. Blattner. Ms. Hutchison, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Abstain?
Yes.
Yes. All right, action item number 2, approval of the 2024-2025 school calendar. Dr. Schuler, any additional information?
I don't think any additional information. This was presented to the board at your meeting last month, was put out on public display. We shared with the board the comments. Mr. Biskin, I don't remember the exact number. I think we received a little over 80 comments from.
I think the exact number was 78.
So we did receive feedback, kind of shared that with the board, not unlike, I think, other calendar experiences. Often in a K-12 district, when you post a calendar, you get feedback that kind of sits on all sides. Everything from we're starting too early in August to we want to be out before Memorial Day to I like this day off. I don't like the day off. So feedback certainly across the board. Our recommendation tonight is that you approve the calendar as presented. I think there are some areas that board members have asked about or registered some concerns about moving forward that I would very much like to make sure that we capture and very diligently build into your feedback process as we look at the next couple of years. But we do recommend that you approve as presented tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Schuler. Board, any questions or comments?
Yeah,
Someone go first.
I'll go first. I was waiting to see if anybody else wanted to jump in. I agree with Dr. Schuler. The feedback was all over the place. You forgot, don't have a day off before homecoming.
Yes.
Because that's a common school college visit day. Yeah, I mean, it's like nailing Jell-O to a wall with some of these comments. It's all over the place. I think what's presented is good. I wish, there's a couple days, especially in the first semester, that I would love to be able to address. I wish there was an opportunity to have that conversation. I brought it up last year, one date in particular. I think there's value in having kids on school on days that are historically important within our community, like Veterans Day. I'd love to be able to revisit that. I kind of feel like I'm not sure what we do with the community feedback if we don't have a chance to respond to it.
Yeah.
We got that. So we posted it for review last month. Board gave feedback, got community feedback. Now we're approving it. I don't know what's the point of getting feedback if we can't respond to it. So I'm not sure what the process would be if we wanted to table it for a month. Is there a problem with that?
Is there no reason we cannot discuss it? I mean,
no.
But
kind of opening the door for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we received probably more feedback than I had anticipated we would. There were some central themes, and think it's worth discussing and maybe holding off on not wanting to disrespect the process that has already occurred to get here. But otherwise, what is the point of posting it and eliciting feedback if we're not going to?
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I guess my concern point is I didn't see a central theme that emerged around which you're going to respond. So I think you can, again, you might have different perspectives, fine. Had I saw a single central theme that clearly indicated I think there was something that needed to be adjusted, I'm not telling you we do that simply as an exercise and never have an opportunity to respond. I didn't. I think, Brad, to your point, the last calendar, the driving goal from the board, expressed from the board, was make the adjustment to get first semester done before winter break, right? Get the finals done in front of winter break. What I think I'm hearing now is some concern over that imbalance of semester, which is always going to vary a little bit based on some circumstances. It happens as you look to next year's calendar that state made a decision to make election day a holiday, a state holiday. That's an extra day off. There are a few days in that first semester. I think teasing out from among a group of variables what are some possible changes you could make to adjust that is just a different question that I think you have to ask. We have surveyed in the past and just asked the community, what do you think about full week off at Thanksgiving? And the community says, we like the full week off at Thanksgiving. What do you think about this day off? We like that day off. I think if we're going to ask them to do some forced choice ranking between, there's a desire to shift more days into first semester, please rank the following 4 opportunities on how we do that. Start school earlier, do not take a full week at Thanksgiving, hold school on Columbus Day, list those opportunities. I think then you could get some authentic feedback, but you'd have to ask the question different than what we ask it when we just post the calendar and say open feedback. So could you do that? Could you delay this vote? Yeah, absolutely can. I think you're going to start to get a little bit late. I think in my perspective, I think you're going to start to get a little bit late to get a calendar out there to your community, but that's entirely up to you. I would just say if you're going to delay it, be really clear what you're asking us to then get feedback around to bring back to you, because I don't know what else is going to change in front of the next vote.
Yeah, just to clarify before the other board members talk, I know the imbalance. We've talked about that. Well, first off, back up. It's been a objective of the board for a long time to try to get finals done before high school. I think we've all felt that as parents with high school kids. I'm sure the 5 sitting behind us would agree. My issue isn't so much the imbalance, because with everything going on in the second semester, I recognize that issue. I guess my concern about the first semester is we have opportunities to have kids in school, more time for learning. That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
Well, I think
maybe they would disagree with me, but
well,
I think there's a benefit of kids in school for learning. So if we could find a day or 2 days in that first semester, I think there's a benefit. I know there's an implication on our bargaining agreement that I don't know if we could review that. I know that if we went back to revisit the process for another month, that's probably going to be a conversation. I don't see that. I don't understand what the harm would be by waiting till December, if that's even feasible.
I just want to add one, in addition to Columbus Day, some of the feedback we've received, there was a concern regarding those 2 days of school after Memorial Day. And I do have a difficulty with that, because I feel at the elementary and middle school level, those become optional days. Those become come to school and watch a movie day, a little bit of babysitting in my thoughts. And so if we were to instead capture Columbus Day and perhaps one other day, that January 6th day perhaps, then we could avoid that scenario
It's
of...
actually 3 days.
Well, the third day is an emergency day, I think.
No, I don't think so.
It's an
that
actually...
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days. It's not 2 days, right?
All right. We can capture 3 then.
So,
Go ahead. No, that's fine.
So, my comment is I recognize the comments and concerns. I'm not sure where we're going to get in 30 days. I kind of feel like you know, although maybe Columbus Day was brought up last year and it didn't happen, but it's more about the process. And there's a lot of work that went on by a committee that brought this forward, and I don't really want to discourage them. And I kind of feel like this is more something we should look at for closer if we really want to get into the weeds on it. I kind of feel like it's a no-win situation, and we can all cherry pick our individual things. And I almost cringe to use this analogy, but it kind of reminds me in the fall of 2020 in the mask debate. No matter what we did, 50% of the people were unhappy. It's the same thing here. If we change, if we eliminate Thanksgiving to balance it, there's gonna be people unhappy. So I kind of feel like, well, if anything, I personally think we should support what's been recommended, and then we should talk about the process and how we want to look at the process next year and get in front of it. And I understand that it almost feels like a formality because why get the feedback, but it is all over the place. So anyway, that's my perspective.
So I wholly agree on the process portion of things. I think we need to revisit that because a process that doesn't allow time for reviewing, responding to, and incorporating feedback isn't what we should aspire for. With regard to the specific calendar in front of us, similar to Mr. Paulson and Ms. Blattner, I think that for two reasons, Columbus Day is something worth review. One, for actually turning it into a learning event as opposed to an event where people are not at school learning neither about Columbus nor indigenous peoples. I think there's an opportunity in school for students to receive some education on both sides of that holiday. And secondly, it does feel like a way to either add a learning day, which we've heard independent of the calendar review process from some members of the community that there is an interest in, and to Mr. Paulson's point, that may require looking at the collective bargaining agreement. Even if we cannot do that, it also helps correct the imbalance between the semesters, admittedly only by one day, but it feels like an easy way to bring some balance there. So I am of the opinion that we should, despite the fact that this will strain the existing process, perhaps table this and work towards a calendar that everyone feels more comfortable with.
Mr. Rutledge?
A lot of work has been done to get to this point, and out of 12,000 students, we had, 78 comments on it, which is not exactly an overwhelming majority. My thinking is, and particularly since there was no direction on those comments, my thought is let's approve this and begin an early start on the following year.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I'm just going to add, I appreciate, Dave, what you said about getting ahead of the process because I feel like we had some of this discussion last year, and I'm not sure, how do we get a board member as part of that process? Because nothing changed from some of the discussion we had last year. I mean, I appreciate it and understand that there's a process, but
And I don't know if it's practical, but instead of, can this be a discussion item at a COW?
It can be a discussion item whenever you want to. So again, I'm not discounting any of the feedback. We get feedback every year on the calendar. I think if the board has a clear sense of direction, we need to find a better process for you to more clearly give us that direction. I know we talked about it, but simply talking about it doesn't necessarily give our team clear direction on what you want us to study. So getting in front of it, I think, means let's put it on an agenda. You tell us what you want for any of our teams to consider as a part of the process, and we will build that into the input process. Again, I think the challenge is this, right? In your stakeholder groups, you have groups that help to develop a calendar, and then the intent is to take that calendar once it's developed and put it in front of a lot of people to get feedback. And I am afraid that if you shortcut that process even in this year, I think you're going to end up with more issues on the back end of this. But again, you guys will have to give us direction.
Even though I respect the process, I respect the effort everybody put in, even though I don't love the calendar, I wish there was more, I would support approving it tonight with the caveat that let's revisit this in the spring where we can get the feedback and really do, it's hard to say a deep dive because we've been really deep on this, but maybe a deeper dive on some of these issues and get ahead of the process going into next year. Maybe it's a 3-step process. One of the things that I remembered from several years ago when we first looked at this, the parents, when their kids are in elementary schools, they want to start later. When their kids get to high school, they like starting earlier. So it's a different perspective at the time. That's not really the core issue here, but we did get a lot of feedback on that. So I would support voting on this tonight with that. Let's really do a deep dive on it, some of these issues in the spring.
Mr. Long, has this been discussed at CAC?
The calendar, we have not discussed it specifically at CAC.
Potential consideration.
So I guess I'm confused as to what has been the process. Like who came up with that? If we didn't bring it to CAC, is it staff or in administration? Is that who?
It's a staff and administration group that generally develop a draft of the calendar that then comes to board and to community.
Okay. So I feel like it coming to the board and community that we're still in the process. But we're a year out. I feel tabling it for 30 days is reasonable. Because we should be part of that process, right? You have staff and administration coming together.
You can be, and I haven't told you that you can't be. You just need to give us more clear direction up front as to what you want for us to consider in the process. The board hasn't done that. So if you would like to do that moving forward, we can absolutely build that in.
Us collectively needing to decide, like, right, do we agree that we can table it for 30 days?
No, we don't. I don't agree. So I think this is a very complex structural question. This is not a simple move some days around conversation. I think it's very complex, very structural. And I think over my 7 years on the board, we go through this exercise. And so I believe in 30 days, we're not going to have a different answer because it's structural. There's there's too many things, parts that move when you start shifting days around.
Agree. However, like at what point are we part of the process? Because right now we're not, and neither is the community. It's staff and administration. So
the teachers have had something to say about this too, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the community. I'm not sure in those 75 or 78 pieces of feedback, I see a theme that I would pivot our calendar on. I see some feedback, and I think I understand why, but I wouldn't change our calendar for all 12,000 students with whether it's teacher conferences or moving a day here or there. I would have a hard time doing that as a board member within 30 days because I believe it's fundamentally structural.
but can we look back to our vision 2026, especially the Columbus Day, where we would be better served to have an instructional day for that holiday?
Again, there's structural issues with that, right? Curriculum you have to develop. What are you going to roll it out? We have to review the curriculum. I mean, there's a lot to it, I believe. It's not just a matter of deciding we're going to teach some content. I think there's a lot to a curriculum shift.
Or we could just have an instructional day in school.
And I don't disagree with what you're saying, but what's the difference with President Day? Why are we off on President's Day and nobody's talking about, well, we should be in school talking about U.S. history? So, I mean, it's like it's not to debate it, it's just about the process and illustrating exactly what Mr. Hanlon's talking about. It's complex, and we can look at one Columbus Day out, easy. Let's just go to school that day. Done. But I don't think it's easy. But even that's not easy because of.
Then I think we need to change the process because we are not part of the process right now.
I'm okay with the concept of changing the process. What I'm not okay with is tabling and waiting 30 days because I don't think we're going to have another answer in 30 days.
So, Dr. Schuler, I mean, every process has a duration.
Mm-hmm.
If we were providing concrete feedback, how long does it take to run it through the process to evaluate that feedback and develop an alternative or a point of view on an alternative?
Yeah, I guess it depends on, so two things. One, I think you can give us direction on certain inputs you'd like to have considered as a part of the calendar, things like what we're just talking about. If you also have specific direction on other groups you wish to have us engage as a part of that feedback loop, that's going to help me to answer that question for you, Eric, to know if it needs to be longer than it is. What I would tell you is we had a very similar conversation with the board about 9 years ago, and ended up starting the calendar development process toward the end of the existing school year because at the direction of the board, we did a much more in-depth survey because there were specific areas of interest that the board asked for us to probe. So I would be short-sighted to tell you right now exactly how long a new process is going to take without us having a little bit of conversation. But at the end of the day, you have ample time in front of next year, and when you are potentially rediscussing this for the following year, we will take all the time that we need based on what you tell us you'd like to have considered.
So we've heard from all the board members. Are there any other kind of new ideas that you want to share?
So my sense is that the most important piece of data to give to the teachers, the administration, and the community is a start date for school.
Well,
there's nothing in this discussion that changes the start date. So is it pragmatic to approve this fundamentally and to leave open an item for review of Columbus Day and the resulting end day? Is there a way to split the baby and do this?
So what I would suggest is we vote on the calendar as presented, and then when we get to topics for future discussion, we add that item for a topic for future discussion that we can then explore all the ideas, not just a couple, but just all the ideas that the process. We can talk about process, we can talk about days, we can talk whatever the board wants to talk about. We can make that an item for future discussion. That's what I'd recommend. I think probably okay. This would be for next year, correct? That would be my assumption. So we approve this calendar. I'm wrong. We should approve this calendar as presented, which is for the 2024-2025 calendar year, next school year. If we're talking about process changes, it'd be for the year following. Oh, are we? I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yes,
Eric. Sorry.
I was suggesting, do we approve the calendar, but noting that discussion of Columbus Day and a potential impact to the last day of school remains an open issue, essentially a contingent approval or a partial approval?
I don't support that, but every board member has to make up their mind. I think we vote on the agenda item, and then we based on the outcome of that agenda item, we could add a topic for future discussion. Dr. Schuler, any other perspectives?
No, if somebody on the board asks put a future agenda item to revisit Columbus Day for next year, you can certainly do so. And then the board, we can gather whatever information you need, and the board can vote on that. So it's your.
So that covers your point, Eric.
Just to make sure I'm crystal clear on what you're saying, we could approve this calendar and then amend it or change
You have amended calendars in the past
Right,
for
for
other
election day,
necessary changes.
Thank you.
All right.
I move approval of the calendar.
Okay, let me move through the process then. Board, I need a motion and a second to approve the 2024-2025 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Paulson. Second? Second by Mr. Rutledge. Ms. Hutchison, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. All right, action item number 3, approval of settlement agreement of vaping litigation. Dr. Schuler.
Yes, you have a recommendation that's in front of you to approve the second of 2 settlement agreements in a vaping litigation that District 200 was a part of. The first partial settlement was with Juul Labs. This is with Altria, second of the companies. Through this second settlement agreement, if the board approves it tonight, you will receive $86,669 through the settlement. This second settlement agreement is going to be delivered in a single lump sum payment that is expected, I believe, Dr. O'Keefe, to be released early next calendar year, I think I heard. So I would certainly recommend that the board approve this settlement agreement.
Thank you, Dr. Schuler. Any board questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Board, I need a motion and a second to approve the settlement agreement as presented.
So motioned.
Moved by Mr. Jerpy, seconded by Mr. Rutledge. Ms. Hutchinson, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, Board, we have the fourth action item that we moved from the consent agenda, which is approval of bills payable and payroll. I don't remember who asked for that item removed. Mr. Jerpy.
That was me, and no sooner than I did that I realized it was completely unnecessary. So my apologies. To the student ambassadors, do not look to me for Robert's Rules of Order instruction. Look to Mr. Rutledge. The sole reason that I did this is there was one item I noted when reviewing the bills payable and payroll, which is a substantial purchase of iPads. I had reached out to Dr. Schuler to get some clarification on this point because specific reason wasn't listed for it. And it relates to the scaling of the pilot of a visitor management system at our buildings to full-scale implementation. Given some community feedback, I thought it was good to draw some attention to that rather than simply approve it under the consent agenda. Dr. Schuler, I don't know if there's any additional color you would like to provide.
Yeah, I don't think other than Mr. Spencer, actually, Mr. Spencer, if you want to add any, we've been piloting a couple of options and are getting ready to move forward.
Yeah, we've been taking the board's recommendation to pilot a guest management system. All the systems that we're piloting require the use of a tablet. So in order to scale that at each building will need at least one tablet.
Yeah, so I thought this was just a very positive thing to call out, which is why I wanted to draw attention to it, and just did so in the incorrect manner. But thank you for humoring me.
Thank you, Mr. Jerpy. So, Board, I need any other comments or questions? Sorry. All right, I need a motion and a second to approve the bills payable and payroll.
So motioned.
Moved by Mr. Jerpy. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Long. Ms. Hutchinson, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right, Board, we have two oral reports. The first is on the 2023 proposed property tax levy. Dr. Schuler?
So Dr. O'Keefe is up at the podium. He's going to take you through the tax levy presentation. This was reviewed by your finance committee before it comes in front of you tonight. Just a step significantly on the process, but the intent tonight is to help you understand what is in the proposed tax levy. That will be followed, I believe, by public hearing in December, and then actual recommendation for you to approve the tax levy in December. So, Dr. O'Keefe, I'm going to hand it right to you.
Thank you, Dr. Schuler. Just a point of reference, too. So this specific presentation looks exactly the same as it did when we brought it to the Finance Committee, except for two specific slides that the Finance Committee asked that we add to this, and I'll point those out as we go through it. So one of the responsibilities of a public school district is to go through a process and approve a tentative tax levy. That specific time frame must happen 20 days in advance, calendar days, not working days, in advance of the final approval by a Board of Education. So obviously with tonight being November 8th, the next time we're together roughly 5 weeks from now, we've met that criteria. This will be on public display for that period. Any feedback that might come in related to the tax levy is aggregated within the business office, and then certainly we would inform the Board of Education of anything significant that comes back in terms of feedback from the community. I just want to start with a few things about the tax levy because can be as simple as a math equation, but as involved as potentially 6, 8, 10, 12 different agencies working together all at the same time. Just some terms, though, that you'll see in every single tax levy. What is a tax cap? We live in DuPage County. DuPage County is a tax cap. The specific law defined is the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. That law, created in the early 90s, limited operational tax increases to a cap of CPI or 5%, whatever is higher. As you'll see in the presentation, we've had 2 years in each December of the prior year where our CPI has been greater than 5%. In fact, that's the first time it's happened at any point in 2 years in a row since specifically that this began back in the early 90s. Mr. Long? Yeah.
Whichever is lower, not higher.
Oh, sorry, whatever is lower, yes, 5% is the cap.
When, one thing that came up in the Finance Committee that I think is interesting is that this is not, correct me if I'm wrong, applicable to all districts in the state. We are one of the areas that is affected by this.
Correct. Not every single county operates underneath the tax cap. DuPage County does. How does this build into it? So Consumer Price Index, CPIU, is the number that is specifically used to define what that tax cap is on an annual basis. That is from the prior December. I'll actually share some information with you about that. Equalized assessed evaluation. This is where things can get confusing for folks, but look at it like this. What do you believe, or what is marketed as the market value of your home? That's market value, right? And it may not be what you think market value should be. You may not think what the assessor assesses as your market value is market value, but that's the starting point to the conversation. Divide that by 3. That's state law. Divide that by 3. That's your equalized assessed value prior to any deductions. That's what EAV means as a whole. And then finally, on this page specifically, the tax rate, or what is defined as the limiting rate, is the actual tax rate or limiting rate extension that is calculated by the clerk's office and extended when we specifically get all of our tax bills. Most of this specific process involves many different agencies outside of the school district. The school district does not determine the value of homes. The school district does not determine the assessment of homes, does not approve any reductions in your equalized assessed value through homeowner exemptions, senior exemptions, any of that. The school district does not determine what the limiting rate is. The school district does not determine what the final overall extension is. We ask for what we are legally responsible for asking for, plus new, as you'll see here, but there's lots of moving pieces inside of this whole conversation. So again, CPI, what I mentioned, specifically, it's measured from December to December. That's the law within PTEL, and the tax levy extensions are based on that quote-unquote 12-month calendar year preceding the levy year. So this is levy year 23. We are using December of 2022 CPI, which is at 6.5%. What's interesting to note is while this is the largest area of ability outside of federal funds that could be infused into public systems like they were during the pandemic, but certainly this is our largest revenue source. And what specifically is defined underneath the tax cap may not always necessarily align with the costs that we have to bear when it comes to a school district. And some examples of that could be food service transportation or certainly benefits. CPI history, I mentioned that. So here's a 5-year look, 6-year look back, and then some projections moving forward. So you see in 2018, CPI was at 2.1%, dropped a little bit, went up a little bit, dropped a little bit more, and then we got to 2022, which was that's the 2022 levy, so that was December of 21. That was at 7, but we're capped at 5. So CPI could be 1,000, but we always are capped at 5%. Last December, it was 6.5%. Again, we're capped at 5%. CPI as of September, so we'll find out next week what CPI was year over year in October, but as of September, it's 3.7% year over year. Typically, there's a bit of a dip at the end of the year, but that's been an anomaly the last couple of years. So we're estimating that CPI would be at 3.5%. It does not impact the tax levy. It's purely an estimate from our perspective. And then we're getting back in years beyond that to more normal estimates of where CPI was when you add in 22 and 23 and you consider the 8 years before it. That 10-year average is actually 2.5%. EAV, again, EAV is a part of the equational process, not something that's determined by the school district. And when you look into this specific slide, we talk about where CPI has been, where we think it's going, where we think our equalized assessed value is going, because that ultimately determines what our limiting rate is. We build in new growth, and then we look at what the growth in existing EAV is. That specific data, new construction and growth in existing EAV, comes from our township treasurer's offices. They specifically provide us with that information on a yearly basis. Two major differences this year than in prior years. One, 2023 is a quadrennial renewal of every single residential, commercial, industrial property in DuPage County and also in Will County. Cook County operates on a triennial, but DuPage County, Will County, Lake County operate on a quadrennial. The other major change is, for whatever reason, and it's infinite wisdom, the county board thought it would be a great idea to interject in a quadrennial year where you're already doing more work because you have to touch every single property, to throw in a new software platform that has to be used by the township assessors. That platform has been used by a couple township assessors, but is not fully functional across all of DuPage County, which means we don't have final data from our assessors' offices yet. What they have told me specifically, what Chris did out of Milton Township, is the range is 6 to 8%. There's, in terms of increases in EAV, mostly focused on lower end residential, increases in commercial higher, increases in industrial higher. There's a few townships that they think will be around the 8%. Chris believes, from a Milton Township perspective, which is our largest township, that we're going to be around a 6% EAV increase. I've got $30,000 in new construction here. He has more than that, but he has a lot of data that he has to back out of it, including PTAB settlements that have come across the board. So as of still, last Friday when this was posted in the board book, we don't have final data. I would expect to have some more precise data for you when we're updating this and asking you to approve it next year. And we'll operate the tax levy in December no differently than we do with the budget. We're just talking about any changes that have occurred between tonight and that point. Township EAV, I mentioned. Milton Township is the largest, so Milton Township envelops about 84% of our overall school district in terms of equalized assessed value. The EAV by class, 5 different classes, but the majority on here you see is almost 79% is based on residential. So we are residential heavy and residential taxpayer heavy, specifically in our district. The EAV analysis, oh boy, that turned out weird. Sorry about that. There's some formulaic challenges on the left-hand side there, but here's projections on where we think EAV are going. Specifically, here's the breakdown of what we're using at this point in time in terms of EAV. That 6.83% increase that we have at this point in time would be 6% related to specifically EAV growth, and then the rest would be new construction. There's the breakdown between existing and where we're forecasting in the future. Sorry again for that little snafu on the left, but new EAV growth, and that will change as we go, and that certainly will be an important part of our conversation collectively as a board when we're talking about 5-year projections, because that is infused new revenue into the system, and we have to be as precise as possible as it relates to new construction. One point on new construction: if you miss a single dollar, you miss it in perpetuity times CPI or whatever the board approves. So for instance, if in the final budget we had $30 million in new construction and it came in at $30 million, so $30 million and $1, that $1 that we miss is missed in perpetuity as a whole, which is why new construction is vitally important to get as close to accurate as possible. Just a kind of a little override on how things look like. So if EAV is flat, typically your tax rate is flat unless there's a significant increase on the CPI side of things. If you see EAV increasing, typically you will see the tax rate decreasing, so it's an inverse relationship, and then same thing other way around. 5-year history, just quick look back on where things have been. Tax levy for 2022 was the first time in a couple of years we had jumped up just a few basis points. That was specific to CPI being at 5% for December of 2021, but pretty common numbers across the board, no major swings in our overall limiting rates or tax rates. Again, just a different variant of how we look at that, very, very static changes in terms of our tax rates over the past 5 years. This is one of the 2 slides that specifically was asked for by the Finance Committee, just some side-by-side comparison with our unit comparables. So we start with Barrington on the left. We move to us in that second bin, Indian Prairie 204 in the middle, then Naperville 203 and St. Charles 203. When you look around, there's some funkiness in Barrington because of a referendum and debt issuance around that specific referendum. But if you look, most of our comparables have fairly static, flat, or minor increases on a basis, but we are near the bottom of all those overall tax rates when we're comparing ourselves to our unit comparables. One important part of this whole conversation, too, that gets built into every tax levy is debt service, and we've been talking about where debt service is going. You see for levy 2022, our debt service number was a little bit over $19 million. For levy 23, Our debt payment's a little bit more than $16 million. It drops to $14 million in next year's levy, and then if it drops off to zero at this point in time for levy 2025. One of the newer requirements when we're talking about posting tax levy, tentative tax levies is, not quite sure the exact purpose behind it because we do this within our budget, but we are required to ensure that we post our fund balances as to this. The far right column, which is fiscal year 22, it's at 32.2%. The information that we have back from our auditor, and we should be getting our final actual documents, finishing up the audit for this year with presentation and a request to accept from this specific board in December. Our fund balance for 22, as you see on here, is 32.2. Our fund balance for 23 is 32.3%. And one of the questions that did come from the board, this is the operating fund balance compared to operating revenues for that specific fiscal year. So here's where we get to the part where we've gotten good positive feedback on how this breaks down. There's a ton of data that goes into it, but it's a math equation, and it's a fairly simplistic math equation. Our aggregate levy on the operating side for 2022 is, you see, the $158 million. CPI was at 6.5% for December of 22. We are capped at 5%. That 5% is built into our budget for this year. So specifically, we just take that $158 million, multiply it by 1.05%. You get to what our limiting specific PTEL cap is. That's almost $66 million. Then we add in new construction. New construction is a variable of what we believe those new dollars are. Plus, I'm going to just go forward to the second page here. If you look in the middle to the right, next to 111.94, this is our estimated tax rate using all of the inputs. That then we go back and multiply here, specifically in line 4, to come up with an estimate in terms of new construction value. And again, new construction is brand new construction. It is not a responsibility borne by all of taxpayers. It is strictly a responsibility borne by taxpayers that have had new construction that have now hit the tax rolls. This percentage, the specific limiting rate, will change because the final extension is always done by the county. Pennies change, dollars change, so it may not necessarily be this, but just for tonight's purposes, to look at what we think new construction is going to mean to us, at $30 million, it'd be about $1.3 billion in new revenue. Then we've got our debt levy service of $16 million, almost $17 million. One note on there, so you see the two asterisks and on the bottom. What we ask for is what our debt payment is. What the county extends is the debt payment in aggregate plus 1%. They do that in every single county where there is a tax cap. In Cook County, some of my previous experience, that number's at 5%. Because what the county does is they look at what is the actual anticipated collection rate. And if you have debt and your debt is X dollars, let's just assume it's $15 million, and you have a 75% collection rate, you are not bringing all the revenue in to actually pay your debt, which means you have to pull it out of your operating funds. So in DuPage County, the county clerk extends that levy request, which again, we only ask for what is due by 1%. On top of that, if you recall too, we've had the conversation in the past about the recapture clause. So the recapture clause is anything that's been refunded during the year that we haven't had the chance to get back in place. That specific dollar amount that we have built into the tentative tax levy here is $400,000. That actually, anytime revenue comes in specific to that, legally, we're supposed to get that number from the Treasurer's Office by November 15th. This is the third tax levy I've done. I've never gotten a number from them until I've actually gotten the tax extension information. So we build this in here, but one of the key points to that is that money goes directly into your capital projects fund. We don't tuck that money back in operating side. We tuck that into the capital side so that we have access to some of those recapture dollars for future capital needs. And then you get to the bottom of number 6. That's what our, as of today, anticipated full tax levy extension is in aggregate between operating and the actual debt service side of things.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Because I think this is a really good slide. And if these numbers held, and this was exactly what it would be if we had the 165.9, number 3, and the 1.3 and line 4, that's 167.3. That would be next year's number 1.
Correct.
And what's the reason I'm bringing that up is just to reemphasize the point you talked about, new construction. If we use 30 million and it actually comes in at 40 million, we don't capture that, and then your perpetuity comment is if it's not in that base, because the starting point is what you assessed last year. So, so if we don't have a good feel for that number, it's best to guess high, which
Yeah,
hopefully we're
yeah.
going to have a better number. but
Correct.
it's-
There's terminology that you'll hear, balloon levy.
Yeah.
Somebody might refer to a balloon levy.
Yeah.
Well, balloon levy is really related to if we don't have good information as it relates, as you said, Dave, to specifically new construction, we don't ever want to be under that number.
Yeah.
We'll overshoot it. But we're only going to get what we're eligible to get. So I could ask you for $1 billion on here. We're only going to get what we're eligible to get underneath PTEL.
And I'm not suggesting we do a billion, but
No, neither am I.
But when you said about the feedback from Milton, if 30, we
Yeah.
might want to bump that number up if we don't have better information.
It's possible this number could go higher, for sure. One other note, too. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. When calculating the limiting rate, this new construction is not a part of it. So when everything goes through and calculating the final limiting rate, so that's the tax extension rate, it's the top half of things prior to your actual new construction.
Which means 5%. It doesn't. The 5% does not include that number. It doesn't
Correct.
include that
Correct. We are not capped at 5% in aggregate. We are capped in our extension year over year, and then we add new construction on top of it. Next slide. Sorry, go ahead, John.
If a TIF expires, is that included within the 5%, or is that on top of it like new construction?
Any TIF or like enterprise type program
thinking
is on top of it. It's on top of it. So TIF number 2 closed last year. So that was a part of this process last year. That equalized assessed value. We didn't know the exact number. We estimated 45 million. It came in at 41 million. So we made sure we were above the fray. And then that would be new money times the tax rate, which was new revenue into the system, yes.
That's outside the PTEL limitation.
Correct. PTEL limitation is only related to where you were last year in your extension times either CPI or the cap of 5%. Anything new is always on top of it. The law does not limit us to 5%. It limits your operational extension to 5%.
And I think it's really important for the public to understand that when we pass a levy, if there's an increase in the levy, that doesn't necessarily mean an increase in their tax.
Every single taxpayer, every one of us in this room that pays taxes, has an extension that is based on the value of your own home and anything you've done to that home, plus any specific exemptions that you or we as individuals are eligible for.
Well, along with the new construction helping shoulder the total load, which can reduce the individual person's tax.
Yep, correct.
Can I just ask something
course.
about what Dave said? So Dave, you said that the 184 becomes next year's. No.
The 165.
Okay.
165 plus new construction. So number 3 and number 4.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
That because I just want to clarify that. Were we to abate, that doesn't. There's not a compounding or an import.
He's going to get.
Right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
great
Thank you.
question. You have the ability to abate operational dollars, but part of our conversation for tonight doesn't have anything to do with the operational side of
Thank
things. This slide here is just the second slide that we have added afterwards, just to give the community an idea of what the breakdown looks by fund for the overall tax extension and where specifically that 4.3235 number, which is 2/3 down of the way on the right. So if in fact everything held true perfectly to a penny, our actual tax rate for the 2023 levy would be 4.7597, which is a 15 basis point reduction over the 2022 extension. And certainly that is driven by a reduction in debt service. That is also driven by an increase in equalized assessed value, because remember, those are inverse relationships. So I am not, by sharing this, I am not telling you or the public, this is what our tax rate is going to be. That gets determined at the county level specifically, but using the inputs that I've discussed and shared with you, this is what we estimate our tax rate, limiting tax rate to be, assuming these inputs. Just a breakdown, so our 2022 levy, about 89% of the overall levy was on the operation side, 11% on the debt side. You'll see here in 2023 that shifts. We're actually up to almost 91% on the operating side, and then a shrinking of the debt service, meaning shrinking in overall debt about 9% on the extension for debt service. And I've got two more slides and then a quick recap for you. So all things being equal based on what I've shared, we look at a 5.82% increase on the operating levy, which again, as you can see on the bottom, is broken down between 5% related to CPI plus new construction. That's 0.82 using these numbers. We have a significant reduction in debt service. You're talking about $2.5 million year over year. So you're looking at a 13.43, this is before any conversation about abatement, just a 13.43% reduction in the debt service tax extension, which would then in aggregate look at roughly an overall tax increase of 3.71%. I can tell you, based on a conversation that I had with every one of our unit comparables last week, this, at least as projected, would be the lowest increase in overall taxes amongst any of our comparables, direct major comparables. That's 203, 204, 205, 303, Barrington 220, plus throw in, because they were in the room, Geneva and Batavia. If the board, as we've had conversations about abating before, would like to abate the $2 million number that we've discussed, and we build that into the conversation and into these numbers, another significant change. You're talking about a $4.5 million overall reduction in our debt service debt service levy extension. So still 5.82% at the top on the operating side. Now we've crept towards almost a 24% reduction in our debt service levy extension, with then building all that together, a estimated overall increase in the tax levy at 2.58%. So non-abatement, as of now, using all the tools that we have, 3.71%, and certainly offset in the debt, the reduction of our debt plays a big part in that. If you were to, next month, approve an abatement of $2 million, that would not happen in the actual levy itself. That would happen through a resolution that we would then give to the county, and the county would make the adjustments on that end. It doesn't have any impact on your operational side of things. It's purely on the debt service extension side of things, and using these same variables, all of a sudden now we're looking at an overall tax increase of about 2.5%.
So I want to make sure I clarify this abatement. So we as a district have to make a debt payment next year, whatever combination of payments, $16,869,060. What we're saying, if we decide to do the $2 million abatement, is we're only going to ask for $14,869,060 and use the $2 million that we have to make that payment.
Yes, with the caveat.
I knew there was a caveat.
We are asking for the $16,869,000 in the tax levy. The resolution that you would approve separately as an action item would inform and mandate that the county themselves reduce the levy by $2 million.
So that resolution happens not tonight. Obviously, this is not an action item, but would it be December or would be?
We'd have two action items for you. Approve the 2023 tax levy as presented, whatever those final numbers are, and then to approve the resolution to authorize the county to abate $2 million out of the debt service fund. Last but not least, just some other major levy considerations that we have to consider when we talk about this. Obviously, we're budgeting any inflationary cost increases. This specific levy will be collected in May and June, typically very end of May, and then a few times in June next calendar year, so that's still a part of the existing budget. We've always got to capture new construction for reasons I've intimated already. Certainly, there is still, while there's more consistency in what is coming from the state in terms of mandated categorical state funding, like transportation, for instance, you never know because they prorate and you don't find out information until the budget's already done. And then last but not least, any specific priorities that the board has afforded through, like tonight approving our 13th iteration of mechanical work, that those payments get built into next year's budget but are a part of this year's levy.
Board, any additional questions for Dr. O'Keefe?
Or for those that have fallen asleep, you can wake up now.
All right.
So, yeah, I just I know we're not acting on this tonight. Clarification of when we talked about the possible debate in the last meeting. We talked about the interest earnings on that, and I know that maybe there's some new clarity. I had proposed the idea of kind of earmarking that interest, those interest earnings which are sitting in the debt service fund, right? And earmarking that for school security improvements. I'm kind of feeling like there's another caveat.
There is.
Okay.
So in this world, there's really two important opinions. One from auditors, secondly from your legal representation. We have one of those opinions at this point. So just as a quick reminder, when you have excess funds sitting inside of debt service, there are three specific things you can do with those excess funds. Number one, you can abate, which is what we've discussed tonight and what more than likely we would expect to be incorporated into our process next month. Secondly, as Mr. Paulson said, you can declare interest earnings. The challenge with that is twofold related to those opinions. Our auditor, who will be here, Nick, next year, Baker and Tilly, believes that your declaration of interest earnings should have a specific resolution behind it in each fiscal year. We, as common practice in this district, have never done that. We could do that for this year, and then any interest earnings that have been earned in the debt service fund for this year, you then could declare as interest earnings and then move those funds somewhere else to be used for a capital project to be specifically named later. He is not of an opinion, based on my conversation with him from a week and a half ago, that any interest income that we've had that have been identified in your annual financial reports prior to this fiscal year would be eligible for you to do that. He does not believe that would be the case. He has one opinion, then there's also the important legal opinion. I am still waiting back to hear from your legal representation on what that opinion is. I specifically will have that for you at our next conversation. Third, somewhat more difficult to explain, but a pretty easy process again. Whatever's sitting in debt service at the end of retiring all of your debts, you could actually issue working cash bonds specifically in that dollar amount. Those working cash bonds would be issued for a small window of time to minimize interest costs as a whole and overall program costs. That declaration, that specific issuance would then go into working cash funds. And then at the end of whatever defined period, 30, 45, 60 days, whatever it may be, you would actually take the proceeds that are still sitting in debt service and use that to pay off your working cash debt issuance. It's a mechanism specifically that's legal and can be done under statute, but it's another mechanism that the board has action to take, and it just shifts that excess from one fund to another, but there are specific processes that we have to follow.
Board, any other questions? All right, thank you. Student ambassadors, it's like this every meeting. All right, our second oral report, options for transition to universal all-day kindergarten. Dr. Schuler.
So Dr. Szilagyi's making his way up. This is a follow-up item to our discussion at Committee of the Whole, I guess a little over a month ago on all-day kindergarten. Board asked us to bring back some options, which we wanted to do for you tonight. So Dr. Szilagyi.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Schuler. Just pulling up the presentation here. Yeah, just as a follow-up, you've heard from us at the tail end of September, and since then, we've also gotten some feedback from CAC, and what we'll be talking through tonight, one is a recap, just a little summary of what we talked through at the tail end of September. And one of the things that you asked us, specifically specifics from Dr. O'Keefe, around options for all-day kindergarten and what those financial implications would be. So as we dive in today, one, I'm going to give you a brief overview. Nothing really new on enrollment trends and parent interest levels, but I want to refresh us on that. And then two, Dr. O'Keefe's going to talk you through what are the options for transitioning to universal all-day kindergarten, specifically some of the financial implications. In addition to that, we'll also share the CAC feedback with you as well. Refresher, House Bill 2396 tells us that beginning 27-28, that each school board must establish a kindergarten with full day attendance, and the caveat to this is a full day attendance, a non-tuition based full day kindergarten program. Another refresher, you've seen this slide before, but this shows the enrollment trend in our district starting back from 2013 all the way through 2023 through this present year, and you really see a complete shift in the enrollment of all day versus half day. Presently this year, 80% of our kids are enrolled in full day, 20% in half day. So you see that interest climbing. As a part of the work that we did to prepare for our September update for you, we asked our half day kindergarten parents, we said if you were offered free tuition, offered kindergarten free of tuition, would you have enrolled your child in the all-day kindergarten program? And actually 65% of those parents said no. We just brought that consideration to let you know that of our small amount, our 20% of our kids that are enrolled, I think we've got about 160 kids enrolled in the half-day kindergarten, had 117 responses on this. 65% of those parents are saying, I want half-day kindergarten, is really what that information is telling you. So it boils down to really three options we want to put in front of the Board of Education tonight to give you greater context and information on. One of those is implement all-day kindergarten beginning with next school year. Second option to explore is a phased tuition piece where you would actually decrease tuition over 3 years with an implementation during the 26-27 school year. And option three is no change in programming or costs until the mandated implementation of universal ADK in 27-28. So with greater details on that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. O'Keefe.
I know his voice isn't that great tonight, but we should challenge him to do some numbers for the group, or maybe next time. So again, option number one is what happens if we universally implement next year. Two major areas to that. One, an overall reduction in revenue. So using numbers from roughly about 6 weeks ago, we had 417 students that were fully paying, and then 48 students that were partially paying, so they qualified for fee reductions. That's about $1.25 million in overall revenue loss. Now, part of what is built into EBF is 3 years of enrollment history, because right now half-day programs, even our full-day program, is still only considered as a half-day as a whole. So we asked and provided ISB with some additional information. They made some updates, plugged it into specifically the evidence-based funding team. They plugged it into a model, and by plugging into the model, they said, well, this is an estimate, but here's what we think your actual increase in evidence-based funding would be if you move to universal ADK next year, $5,000.
There's no zero. That's not a
No,
K next to it.
there's no periods or zeros that are missing. No, and again, that's an estimate, but that's going directly to the EBF team, having them run the model. That is the EBF model, and then providing feedback to us. It would not be exactly that, but I don't anticipate a significant change. Then certainly, if we're moving to a full day experience, we need to make sure that we got the teaching staff for that. So all of a sudden you're going from 6.5 FTEs to 13 FTEs. We've got to add those. There's your cost based on the existing folks in place this year, moving up and following the WWEA contract for next year. And benefits. Benefits are minor, and benefits are a bit different when you're a 50-50 or 0.5 FTE within here. So if we just look at what we think it would cost you minimally, we're talking small dollars, less than $20,000 here, but this does not include two major things. One, I would not be surprised if all of a sudden we had full-time staff instead of 0.5 FTEs, if there would be a different consideration for some of those folks to access benefits, which would certainly, there's a board cost to that. And then secondarily, this doesn't include anything of what the actual increased cost to the plans would be next September, which is the beginning of our plan year in 2024. Now, there is one thing that would actually help to offset a little bit, but we don't have that specific number because it all depends on where the kids live and how the bus routes are set up. But if we do not have a half-day program, we don't have to transport in the middle of the day. But again, I can't give you a specific number because it all depends on specifically bus routes where kids are at and then how those routes are set up.
Absent a specific number, I mean, from a order of magnitude, is this going to be like the EBF number, or we have some more zeros on this?
Maybe $100,000,
Okay, thank you.
but no more zeros after that. So just a quick recap. If you're looking at implementing next year, from an estimation perspective, what could it cost you? About $1.7 million between the revenue reduction and then increase in overall expenditures. Option 2, let's phase it in. Phase it in over time. We've actually gone from $4,000 in annual tuition to $3,600 to now $2,900 in the existing school year. So if we just back that off and try to chunk it into threes, if you will, we move from $2,900 to $2,000. That's a $900 loss per student. So that's about $375,000. But specifically, there's no change in the expenditure overall. We're running half-day programs. We're still running things as is. It's just a loss in overall revenue, no change on the backside of things. So you're talking about phasing it in next year, about a $375,000 reduction in your revenue. But again, that depends on how many students are actually in the program. If we continue that phase in and we move from 2,900 to 2,000 to 1,000, we've got to look at what the revenue reduction is next school year or next fiscal year. Same thing for the fiscal year after. So all of a sudden, that escalation now, you're up to about $1.2 million. And again, no changes on the expense side because the program is running as is. 26, 27, which is when it would sunset, adds in a little bit more depth to this. So we talk about fiscal year 25 reduction in revenues, fiscal year 26 reduction in revenues, fiscal year 27 reduction in revenues, and then when the half-day program disappears, specifically because we got an overall reduced number of tuition students, that then comes by the wayside too. So you're at about an overall reduction of about $1.6 million over that specific 3-year period.
Hey, Brian?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the fiscal year. So you've got fiscal year 26 to 27 twice?
Part of it is half days. So that second number there is half-day program. Okay. Reduced fees. But then in this phase, then we go back to the additional expenditure. So this using the same teachers, if we just project out a few more years, you're talking about more than now $400,000 in new overall dollars. Benefits, I anticipate, would not be this number. They would more than likely be higher than this number. And then again, if we phased out, all of a sudden we don't have a half-day program, then there would be an uptick in terms of money back to the district that it's not spending for buses midday. You just look at what then implementing a year early would look like. You're at about a $2.1 million price tag overall because most of that is revenue reduction just through the phased-in reduction in your overall tuition from 2,900 to 2,000 to 1,000 to 0. Last but not least, a little bit different, but it's just we're all in when we need to be all in. So our overall revenue reduction looks a little bit different. It matches really what year one is as a whole, but the major difference is you still have your tuition at your $2,900 throughout that time frame. So there is an offset to this because you're retaining revenue over that 3-year period of time before then moving to full day kindergarten. So I didn't net it as a whole, but I just pointed it out that all things being equal, there's a bit of a different conversation at this point. Yes, you're going to have a revenue reduction for fiscal year 28, but if you don't make any changes, you've had some consistency in the revenues for the 3 years prior to that. So the one-time hit is still the one-time hit. The question is, when does it happen?
Yeah, we did the initial presentation that we did with the Board of Education. We also brought that in front of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And we asked them for feedback really on the options that Dr. O'Keefe just laid out. And the majority of the recommendations that we heard were around delaying immediate transition to all-day kindergarten for next year, really around lessening the financial impact. But that was not universal amongst the groups. We did hear from a few select folks and a group that was recommending that immediate implementation for the following year. But the majority was around delaying that immediate transition. So we thought it was worth noting that CAC feedback that we had a lot of really good conversation and questions at the table there as well.
So when they say delaying immediate, that would mean then either option 2 or option 3?
Yeah, we heard a little bit kind of mixed on both of those, yep.
Board, any additional questions? Oh, I'm sorry, guys, you at the end.
Yep. Putting the potential.
The summary? Okay.
I have one question. Have we asked staff what their thought is about which option or any feedback on what staff may think?
Not in a formal manner yet, so we haven't done a survey option or any of those pieces yet, no.
So,
go ahead, Brad, sorry.
Now, so based on this legislation, we will have a negative financial impact. We still provide all that kindergarten now. We just have to move to the point where we offer it at no tuition. So there's a negative impact financially. Right.
When you implement, yes.
Right.
That number is going to be that number. The question is, what year does that number go into?
I mean, just tell you my opinion. I'm big in giving our financial department the tools to plan accordingly. So if I had to vote, I like option 2. That's my opinion.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to. I don't like the idea of forcing. We've already got financial pressures over the next couple of years. I don't want to rip another Band-Aid off and have to stop the bleeding. I'd rather enable our financial group to plan through a series of 5-year financial projections for something that they can be organized around, as opposed to, rather than hit the wall right away. That's kind of give them flexibility.
Mr. Long?
When do you think we should be making a decision about this?
Well, I think probably a couple of things. Really 2 key markers coming up. One, you are going to start registering kindergarten students, Dr. Sloggy.
Right after the new year.
So,
yeah, new kindergarten students for the following year, they'll start rolling in right after January 1.
soon.
I would say.
Yeah, and that's fine. So, I want to say that philosophically, I agree with you, kind of soft landing it. But when I see that, I'm hesitant though because of the small number of students that really, the fact that most of the people that aren't attending full day would still not attend. So, whatever that number is, that $3 million that is, that we kind of maintain in option 3 is I'm just kind of, what I'm thinking about is the 5-year plan, the 5-year forecast that we're going to be looking deeply, and probably a little bit later than we need to make the decision. Has me hesitant. I agree with you. It's better to kind of soft land it as opposed to, oh no, we got this big hole in 3 or 4 years. But that's just, so that has me hesitant to fully commit to option 2 tonight.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, though, the only thing that forces the fast decision is if we have any intention of doing option 1. We have plenty of time to decide between option 2 or 3.
You do. I mean, I would think as you're starting to register kindergarten students, you want to give them a sense of what the cost is, because it's about the same time that they're picking an option. So if you think what the tuition is going to impact the family's decision, you'd want to give them that at the time they're registering for kindergarten.
Yeah, I was going to say, but only 65% of the half-day students say the tuition's not an impact.
Sure.
So if we use that data, then it's maybe not an important decision. So it's an interesting observation that if we decide we don't want to do 1, then the timing on the decision between 2 and 3 isn't as doesn't feel like it's as imminent.
When similar to what Mr. Long said, I think making this decision without having the multi-year projection in front of us is very challenging.
I agree. That's a good point, because we've got, with the next 5-year projections is probably super critical because of the changes we have coming ahead, and to be able to factor decisions in is going to give more data to be addressed.
One piece of just clarification. When our families come in initially to register, they're going through just they're going through the general registration process, giving all the documents, all those different pieces, proven residency, and at that point they indicate their interests. So they're telling the front office, we're thinking all-day kindergarten, we're thinking half-day kindergarten. It is nice to know, obviously, that cost. However, I do want to make sure that I'm clear around the official registration. What we've typically done with all-day kindergarten is actually in March. So even though you're registered, the official only for all-day kindergarten, because it's been a tuition-based program. Now, we've typically gone into that, obviously wanting to know the rates and the fees of that, but I wanted to separate initial registration from this almost second process, the 80K process for the board.
Any other questions from board? I have two then. Does House Bill 2396 require attendance in full-day kindergarten, or it's an option?
I can tell you what the I don't believe that there is specific language around the requirement of attendance, and this has been a discussion as well, so I'm gonna do my best to articulate this. Right now, if you were only offering full day kindergarten, okay, so there are districts that only offer that, you still have to provide the option for a half day. And if there are more than 20 students that are asking for that in a district that's offering full day, the school district has to offer a half day section.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't get into the specific language, to my knowledge, around required attendance.
So we don't know it yet. More TBD. I get it. Yeah.
Correct.
No, that's fine.
Yep.
That's good. Mike, the caveat before I say what I'm going to say is, I would like to know in our 5-year strategic plan how this fits. I get it. That's a really important tool for us, right? But now I'm going to say something opposite to that. What we haven't had the conversation about is the impact to the students. We've talked about the financial implications. With 80% of our parents electing it, and the state saying you need to offer it, I would assume that the impact from a layman's perspective is significant. That offering it to have go to full day kindergarten is a big deal from an educator's perspective. So I just say from a layman's perspective, we haven't talked about it yet.
I think we did in the last time, in that really, though, potentially, depending on how that circle shifts, it's a pretty narrow group of students that are going to be at most families are in full day.
Yeah. Right.
That's not going to change. Whether it really, I think, is a financial decision ultimately for the board. I think what you see in that chart is that even if you make it, you don't charge anything, you're capturing, what's the number? You're capturing of 117 people that responded, 35% have said the finances would likely shift my decision. So might be capturing 40 students.
Mm-hmm.
So to Rob's question, though, refresh my memory, do we see a substantial difference in academic outcomes in the early grades from children who have done all day versus half day?
It depends on the students. We have run some of that data. There certainly are students based on several demographic factors that are impacted more significantly by the full day experience.
Eric, I just want to say, I think one thing to consider is that we've implemented 2 new curriculums, which also feed into kindergarten, that are pretty time intensive, and that, which is necessary, spending that amount of time in the day of instructional activity doesn't leave time for play or socialization as much. So I think having that option for all day would give back that play to these young students who very much benefit from that. That's my perspective. I think we did kind of discussed it before because I
remember
was the
that now.
one that,
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just my perspective, 'cause this is an oral conversation, right? My perspective is do it sooner rather than later. You know that, but I with the caveat, I get the 5-year plan, right? We got to do the work, but to the extent we can, my preference would be to do it sooner.
I think one thing to add, in the community, and I was at the CAC meeting, and it was interesting to listen to the perspectives. Definitely, heard that fiscally we want to be responsible. The younger parents and within the community outside of the CAC, there is some disgruntlement that we're not already offering it. A lot of the people who are paying are really sacrificing to pay and, are feeling the strain. And I do wonder if we will still have 80% next year who can pay.
Well, that
we'll see.
percentage has been going up every year, that of the parents who are electing full-day kindergarten. It's been going up every year except for that blip during COVID. And I just want to clarify one little, I understand your point. I want to clarify one point about, the benefit of the option. This is not a decision. We're not deciding whether we want to provide that option. They already have that option. This is purely a financial
it's a good point,
conversation. Every parent whose kids start kindergarten have the option to pick one or the other. We're not making a decision that changes that. We're making a decision that changes the financial structure.
Correct.
Yeah, I
Except
probably
for those
took this down a
40-some
wrong angle, Brad. I agree with you.
Except for those 40-some students who would take advantage of that aren't. That's fine. And Rob, to your first question, as it is currently in school code, kindergarten's not required. So I think.
I'm just saying I'm not an expert in it. I'm a layperson,
Yeah.
so I was just relying on.
So I don't think that's changed.
Experts to
I don't
tell
think
me.
that'll change with this bill. Kindergarten's not a required. You're not required to attend school until you're age 6. Is that okay? Thank you.
All right, board. Any other questions, feedback? All right, thank you. Let's see. Discussion items. So we have one discussion item tonight, discussion of the IASB resolutions and directions for delegate voting. Dr. Schuler, any intro?
I don't have any new information. I think we introduced this last time. Asked the board if you had any particular feedback. I think you just need to give Eric some direction for whether you concur with the recommendations, I think, from the
Right. So
committee.
as a reminder, we received from, I want to steal your thunder, Eric, so I don't cut me off if you want to go.
I'd like to cut you off.
Go ahead, have at it.
So there was actually a webinar for delegates short while ago. I'm losing track of time. It was this week or last week. And for those of you who are experienced, this probably isn't new news, but with some new folks on the board, first of all, a learning point was you're not voting yay or nay to a resolution. You're voting yay or nay to what the resolution committee has recommended, we say. That's probably just a semantic difference, but want to call that out. The second point is last time we discussed this, the only feedback or questions received was really around the resolution related to employment history review, where the committee is recommending we say no. And there were some questions, I can't remember from who, but around if DCFS was not the right agency to look at this, who is? I have reached out to ISB for further guidance from the resolution committee on who they think the right party is, kind of what was the background of that resolution. The third point, which was new news to me, is, obviously as your delegate, I'm going there to represent what we decide here. However, what was brought to my attention is there is floor debate at the delegate convention, so there can be new information introduced, and if that's the case, the delegate has the ability, if they believe it's consistent with the desires of the board, to shift their vote on the fly. So if there are elements of this where there are points you're sensitive on, where you say, I agree with the resolution, however, were points A, B, or C to come to light, I would like to be armed with kind of that information so that I can make an informed choice on the floor if necessary.
As long as you promise not to go completely rogue, am I right with that?
That is correct. I should not go completely rogue. I will not go completely rogue.
Any feedback from board members for Eric?
My opinion in reading those, there's like 5 or 6 resolutions, which pales in comparison to previous years. My opinion is I agree with the recommendations on all 5 or 6, whatever it was.
Any other feedback from board?
I also agree. It was me who asked. About the rationale for their position on the not the right system, because it's not the right system and there's no other color behind it. I'm just curious.
Yeah, and
But-
if I get additional information on that, I will communicate that to Jeff so that he can get it out in Friday notes or some other forum in case it changes anyone's opinion.
Yeah, I looked at that and said, if that's not the right one, what is?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think everybody knows, but this is really just what the state board is going to ask our lobbyists to lobby for. So there's no real short-term immediate impact. It's not to say it's not important, but it's what are we telling our lobbyists is really what we're
Anything else? All right, thanks for representing us, Eric.
So do you
Appreciate
have
it.
clear direction how you're supposed to vote?
Crystal.
It's next Friday. Friday or Saturday?
Friday.
Yes.
Saturday.
Saturday morning.
So you know how you're supposed to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, board committee report. So I'm going to ask each committee chair to just give a brief, overview of the facility meeting they had. So board facilities committee. Mr. Paulson?
Yeah, so really good. We had a meeting, I don't remember when it was, last Thursday. Really, the meeting minutes are pretty comprehensive and fairly reflect the conversation. So a couple of highlights. We had 3 topics. First, we reviewed the noise survey that was done over at Warrenville South. Had a conversation about that and kind of directed the administrative team to go back and evaluate a couple steps to address some options to help out the situation. The second item was the performance guarantee report, which was on our agenda tonight. Nothing really to add to that. And then the third was the community engagement report on the middle school projects. Was presented at the board meeting, at the last committee of the whole meeting that John and I actually both missed. The only really thing to really highlight there is that in December we're going to come back with the full set of feedback and probably have a discussion at this table about what we do using that information going into the next, probably next 6 months of, first 6 months of next year.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Board finance, Mr. Long.
Sorry,
just
are we
take
allowed to
about-
ask questions?
Oh, go ahead.
So, very much respecting committee work wherever you landed on noise mitigation, I am fully supportive of. My question is, are any of the steps being looked at things that will likely create a precedent or a carryover impact to other facilities where we may be asked to consider doing the same steps there?
I guess.
I would say potentially. I mean, again, I think the rationale, the basis for that is they use the noise ordinance out of the village, determine there's a point in which we're crossing it. So I think, yes, that would be the direction that if we were in a similar circumstance, we would address based on that.
Okay, so as long as it creates this thing, a clear objective precedent, that's positive.
Correct. Yeah. We use the standard to make that decision moving forward.
I would just add to that that in my almost 12 years now, this is the only school that's had any kind of concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Jerpy. Mr. Long, board finance committee.
So the first thing we talked about was the levy presentation, so I just have about 20 minutes to talk about that. Nothing new to add. I just briefly on the abatement. As the finance committee, we are still supporting the $2 million abatement under the philosophy of we collected that money. We raised those bonds for specific issues, understand potentially earmarking it for security or other thoughts. Thinking is we can find if the security is a priority, we don't need to necessarily tie it to this. And then the borrowing cost of if we abate this $2 million and then we have to borrow money to fund some things, that interest rate is pretty low. And so anyway, that's where we are when we talk to that. And then the only other thing we did talk a little bit about the audit. Last year the audit was a little bit later, and that was because of the organizational changes that happened within the financial team at the district. We're much closer to the normal timeline, and the audit is clean audit. At least it was as of October 24th. I still think it's today. And that's it.
So we're going to get that audit in the December
December.
meeting?
Yes, and I will work with Dr. O'Keefe on the summary. So you guys won't want to miss that, because Dr. O'Keefe will probably talk for 2.5 hours just on the audit.
Buckle your seatbelts for that conversation.
This is the most excited I've seen you in a while, Brad.
Just
All
for
right.
clarification purposes, I do not present the audit. That's actually presented by
Your auditor.
our lead auditor, the partner, Nick Cavalier. So you'll be spared from this voice at least a little bit next month.
Thank you. Any questions for the Finance Committee?
I have a question. And Dave, you said, and I just wanted to, from the minutes, the impact, and this might be more of an ask for Brian, the impact on the homeowners, if that is returned through abatement, the interest piece we would be paying would be very small if we abate and then borrow funds for the middle school projects. Could we get some numbers on that? Like what that would look like?
Not quickly off the top of my head.
No, and I don't expect it off the
Yeah,
top of
it
my
all depends on what the interest rate would be, but sure, we can. I can talk to PMA and just see $2 million over 20 years at X interest rate equals, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Finance? All right. Ms. Blattner, Board Human Resource and HR and Policy
I'm filling
Committee.
in for Mrs. Kulowitz tonight. So we had 3 things on our agenda as well that we covered. We've been plowing our way through the administrative procedures and kind of looking at language and things, and nothing was, nothing significant. And then we already discussed the graduation requirements. And then last thing was the development of a social media guideline, digital communication areas of responsibility for our district, which Mr. Biskin has developed a outline rubric that is a work in progress, but is looking really nice. And I thank you for that, because that's very important. And that's all.
What's the scope of that? Like that, what does that actually mean?
Bring clarity. So in your board policy that deals with employee code of conduct, there are 3 areas specifically where it identifies that we will develop clarity around like procedures and expectations.
Thank you. Any other questions, Board? All right. Reports from board members. Board, any other reports that you want to share?
I have a question.
Okay.
Just popped into my head. Dr.
Related
Salagi.
to what?
I'm just curious how the presentation by Michelle Denault went yesterday.
Yeah, it was well received. Good learning opportunity. Great information provided. Had all administrate all of our EC12 leadership team that meets monthly. In addition to that, our assistant principals from the middle school, assistant principal from the high school, and some of our local law enforcement. So quality presentation, good learning opportunity for our organization. And afterwards, we offer time for folks to reflect and discuss further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other reports, Board?
As I don't entirely understand the purpose of this agenda item, I will just take this opportunity to say that the legislative breakfast I thought was tremendously productive. It was a learning experience, but also a great opportunity to benchmark with peers in other districts. So I'm glad we were able to do that, and I very much look forward to that becoming an annual, if not more frequent, activity.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you. It was well executed by the team. Also, 2 things. I attended the Carroll Stream legislative breakfast, very similar model, but that's the village of Carroll Stream doing it. Then secondly, we all attended, I believe, the a joint session between Indian. I'm gonna get the districts wrong. Our district.
I think that's the one Eric's talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about our our partner breakfast. You were not talking about our partner breakfast, Eric.
I was talking about the one with 203, 204.
Got it. Okay,
and us.
sorry. Yeah. I thought you were talking about the one we did with the group.
I don't think you were there for the elected official.
No, I'm referring to the legislative
Got
one
it.
at
So that would
Johnson.
be. Thank you. Appreciate it, Eric. Yeah, mine would have been redundant then. To your point. All right. Any other reports?
I just a couple comments. Did attend the Student Excellence Foundation fundraiser last Saturday night, and it's just want to give a little focus to that foundation because they do a lot of good things, funding classrooms and food trucks, and so it was a good event. And then the student ambassadors, welcome. I'm very happy to have this. My girls are sophomores and seniors in college, so I felt like when I was first on the board, I had some student voice, even though I would annoy them by asking their friends questions. But I'm really excited about the fact that there were so many people that applied, because my bias was, are we going to get enough people? And so I was pleasantly surprised, and really thank you guys for being here, and I hope it's fun and that you really get something out of it and provide back to us, because that's really what it's about. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We have 4 written reports that are in the online agenda you can look at, the monthly financial reports, our FOIA report, our board communication log, and then our Citizen Advisory Committee CAC report. We have 2 topics for future discussion: the 2023 Truth and Taxation hearing, and then secondly, the fiscal year 2023 audit. Are there any additional topics board members want considered for future discussion?
Just based on the conversation tonight, the future calendar discussion.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion as well, perhaps broken into 2 separate discussions, one specific to the certain days on the calendar, one related to the process for developing the calendar. And then the only other topic, and I know this needs to work its way through the Finance Committee first, but eventually a discussion of fee schedule.
Mm-hmm. Right. Eric, I think we do share the fee schedule with, are you looking for more in-depth?
Well, so we had reduced the fee schedule to what year's level, Dr. Schuler?
Pre-pandemic, we cut it in 50%, haven't come back. But
And we had at a previous meeting talked about, in the context of all-day kindergarten, revisiting that. I think as a group we concluded that that's really an independent topic.
Right.
I still think it's an independent topic that we should get to.
Yep.
Because it's a material cost for parents, but B, it's a material revenue source for the district.
Thank you. Any other topics, board? Do we have the clarity we need on those topics? Great. Our next regular board meeting will be on December 13th at 7 o'clock at Lincoln Elementary School.
Hey, can I ask a question on next regular meetings?
Yes, sir.
Actually, it's a CAC question. We have a CAC next week. Which board member is going to that?
That's
Got
me.
it? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we were each signed up for dates, and I just looked at that. I will notify you if we have a gap in that, but right now we're covered. So our next meeting's there. So we do have a closed session tonight. We're going to be moving into a closed session. Board, I need a motion and a second to adjourn to closed session pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, Exemption 5 ILCS 120/2, Part C, Part 11.
So moved.
Moved and seconded by Mr. Rutledge. Ms. Hutchinson, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there is no action expected following the closed session. Thank you.